You got more coming there, Jim? Well, what's that? Yeah, let's get started. You want to get out of the light?
No, he's in the spotlight.
You're wrecking my thing.
So,
Let's hold on one second here. Hold on. Can we get this to? I wonder why it's yellow. It's kind of weird.
Bert and Ernie show.
Well, we'll make it work.
Welcome to the Bert and Ernie show. That's Bert, and I'm Jim. So this is industry trends. Unfortunately, as you all know, that Paula and Paul couldn't make it to the convention because of a little crisis that we have in the country right now. So with that being said, not only is Bert and I on the board for Wisconsin, Bert is also chair-elect for RVEC. He's got years of knowledge and background, and he works very closely with Paul and Paula. I just a little peon. I'm on the foundation board for the RVEC side of it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bert.
Well, thanks, Jim. This may come to a shock, I am not Paula, I am Bert.
You have motorcycles like Paula has?
I do not, actually. Paula is actually a very interesting character. I'm kind of upset. I'm not upset. It's a misfortune she couldn't be here because she's actually a great public speaker, full of knowledge, and does a great job at RVIC. Jim, sit down. So I am your Area 3 Director from RVIC, have been for 5.5 years now. I've worked my way up through the XCOM at RVIC. I've held every seat except for chair, which I'm working up toward to chair. So I've held the seats of treasurer, past treasurer, second vice, currently chair-elect, and maybe in a year I'll become the chairman. So that'll be kind of exciting. So that means that my 6 years, or my 2 years, or my 2 3-year terms will be up this November. Mr. Button has decided to run for that position. So with any luck, with your voting skills at hand in November, Mr. Button would then take over the Area 3 representation for RVIC. So it would be great to have another person from Wisconsin on that board again. Wisconsin's held that seat for many, many years. So moving on. So I'm going to give you the best that I can do of Paula's presentation here. So we're going to talk about industry trends in RVIC. So 3 major trends facing the industry today. RVIC is working on all 3 for you, which are these: legislative, growth in our industry, digital evolution driving challenge. So those are those 3. Like I said, this is not my presentation. It's very much Paula's, so work with me. I'll try not to do death by PowerPoint. So bigger than you think. How many realize the industry we are in represents 2.2 of the US GDP? Anybody?
Yep. Yep.
So it's bigger than pharmaceuticals.
It's bigger, sorry to interject, but it's bigger than the pharmaceuticals and the agricultural together, combined. So though it seems like it's only 2.2 of the GDP, we are a major player in the economy for the U.S. I know it sounds very low, but the fact that we're on the GDP and we're recognized in the outdoor hospitality industry is huge.
Thank you, Jim. All right, the outdoor recreation industry represents 2.2 of the GDP. We just covered that, contributing $734 billion to the U.S. economy, and it translates into about 4.5 million jobs supported by outdoor recreation. Get my thing working here. The RV and campground contribution to 25.6 billion and 130,000 jobs. Why is this important? These numbers are power. So what this means is that Washington has taken an eye to us, not so much just to tax us like they do everything else, but to listen to us from, go ahead, Jim, you fill in on this part, because you've been there.
So every year, ARVIC goes to advocacy days out in Washington, D.C. It's usually the first or second week in June. I fortunately have been able to go to the last 5 or 6, meet with senators and discuss some things in the outdoor hospitality industry that we would like to see changed or modified in some way. And the fact that they have one day that they listen to us is huge. $25.6 billion in total economic impact, the 130,000 jobs, $2 billion paid in local, state, and federal taxes, again, is huge. And that's a thanks to everybody in this room, everybody in the state, and everybody in the country. We're all in this together, and the RVIA industry, the RVDA, DA is dealers. So there's a whole group of people that make up that advocacy day. And what we do is just go in there and fight for things that are going to help our industry. So the $2 billion paid in local, state, and federal taxes is huge. You know, our senators and congressmen want to know what we're doing to contribute to, you know, not only local, but to the state. And if you ever want to find out what Portage County, Grant County, Waushara County, what your county actually contributes, what you contribute, you can go online and you can look that up. If you don't want to do it, give me your name and email and I'll send it right over. But all that information is all privy to you. And when you go to your town board, it is helpful if you're going to expand or do things, that you have that documentation to prove what a player you are in your community. So.
You're absolutely correct. So legislative issues in 2020. So we are fortunate at ARVIC. We have a staff member who is tenacious with legislation. His main job is to get up at 4 a.m., make coffee, and go through every law that our federal government is thinking about adopting and search all that paperwork for anything that might impact our industry. Last year alone, he went through 10,000 different bills. 10,000. So you gotta love what you want. You gotta love what you do at that point, right?
So one of the catches, if you don't know, his name's Jeff Sims, and Jeff Sims works for ARVIC. And again, his sole job out there is reading all that dry material that comes through his emails. One of the things, you know, trust me, there's multiple things that we are thankful that he is doing that job. It'll be in here, but just lately he caught a thing that was going to be going through for pools. So he sent that to Lori. Lori brought that to the board. Us as a board are going to the meetings of the pool revision to talk some common sense in for campground owners. So that's what his sole job is to alert us when there's a flag that pops up like a tip up, and then we can act on it. So, I mean, it's huge.
It is. It's massive.
These are all these are what makes up the industry as a whole. The ORR, RVDA, the NCF, all these make up the whole form of what's combined in the what goes out to advocacy. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So ARVIC is a part of these 6 different organizations that you see here that are the talking force in Washington. So we're not alone. The rest of our industry is behind us as well. So we've joined forces to have a bigger voice. So the big one is ADA compliance, and you know, we all want to make our parks as accessible as possible and as comfortable as possible for all of our guests. And sometimes the laws get a little out of line. And that's what these 6 organizations are really doing, is trying to keep an eye on that for us. So being an ARVIC member, which I don't want to single anybody out, but is everybody just basically an ARVIC member in here? Yeah, great, excellent. So just being an ARVIC member, from a political standpoint, you know, the dues are worth it. They really, really are. If you don't get anything else out of being an ARVIC member, if you don't use the equipment programs, the paint programs, if the convention isn't your cup of tea because Waco's such a great convention, just being a member of those 6 alliances is well worth it.
There will be a slide coming up that will reinforce why ARVIC is so important. But I just wanted to scroll back on,
Yeah.
you want to talk about website compliance?
No, go ahead.
So how many of you guys have some sort of ADA compliant webpage? So those that don't, I would suggest you work on trying to make some changes to make it ADA compliant as best as you can. I would document everything that you can do. When it comes to ADA, they want to know really that you're trying to work on bettering your campground for the ADA compliance thing. It's a little circle at the bottom of your webpage. People click on it. It's got audio, it's got video, it's got, you know, it doesn't have Braille. But it has a multitude of things that cover you. If you think it's not important, trust me, campgrounds are being sued out there right now, big dollars, because they are not compliant. And people are going after those campgrounds. So find somebody, if you can't find anybody in your area, let Bert or I know. I know of some great companies out there that are offering a heck of a discounted program to get it on your website. You need to have something, but documentation is important.
I was going to say, just even if you can't allocate the dollars to getting it done, even if you just have a documented plan that you can prove existed, will help you to some extent. Obviously, it won't protect you from getting sued, but...
Absolutely. Something's better than nothing. Something, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so.
Okay, website compliance. Create a link. Let me see what she's got for notes here. One of the easy ways to do this is to have an accessible policy posted on your website. So we kind of talked about that a little bit, touched on that. Inherent risk. So let's move on to that. I think we've touched ADA as much as we're going to touch it today. Go ahead. So Wisconsin is still the only state in the union
The only state.
that has passed the Inherent Risk Act, our law.
We are very fortunate. Again, I'll just say kudos to you know, the board, and Bud had a lot to do with that inherent risk. So the fact that we're the only state is mind-blowing.
Yeah, and the other states you see highlighted here are all in the works of getting that type of legislation passed. Ohio is the closest right now. I know out east, I can't remember if it was Connecticut or Vermont, they had it almost there and it got tossed back. So progress is being made. It's not an easy thing to do. And if anybody remembers years ago, probably mid-2000s, early 2000s, we tried to get a similar law passed, and it made it all the way to the governor's desk and got tossed in the garbage can. So it took Wisconsin 2 tries that I know of, in a course of 15 years to get that law passed. So,
But again, with the inherent risk, is all we wanted was parity with other industries out there, like Christmas tree growers, farms, wineries, things like that. When people go on land, that there is an inherent risk of, let's just say, a little mold. I mean, we can't go by and stomp those out every day, right? But we do have to be vigilant for the things that we can control.
does everybody know what that law is? We got some no's? So what that law does is, and it's not 100% bulletproof, and to my knowledge, it hasn't been tested yet. But what that law does is if you are a licensed campground in the state of Wisconsin and you are doing your due diligence, you know, there are things, trips and falls and cuts and scrapes and, you know, when you're walking around in the campground without a flashlight and you trip and fall over into a fire pit, which is probably a little extreme, you know, there's types of injuries like that that can't be held, we are no longer responsible for, per that law. You know, if I go out and dig a hole to fix my sewer line and I don't rope it off and put up signs and, you know, danger, don't walk here, and someone trips and falls into that hole and breaks an ankle, you're liable. You see the difference there. So that's what that law is designed to do. It's designed to give us some sort of alignment with what state parks have. State parks, you can't sue the state of Wisconsin for going to a state park and climbing Devil's Lake, climbing the rocks at Devil's Lake, falling off the mountain at Devil's Lake and breaking your leg. You can't sue the state of Wisconsin. That was an inherent risk. You knew the risk before you went in. You can't sue the state of Wisconsin. So the law isn't 100% paired, just like the state of Wisconsin's laws are written, but it does give you some immunity.
One of the things, we had a class yesterday with Mark, Ben, and I, and one of the things that we touched on was, if somebody tells you of something that might be a hazard in your campground or a potential risk, because you are informed of it, that you need to take action. So, whether it be, you know, part of your asphalt, or you've got a mound of dirt and it wasn't there and now it's there, or maybe a limb hanging, and somebody gets hurt on something like that, it's your responsibility. So if somebody brings something to your attention and you do nothing, you're responsible. This doesn't cover you.
One other point is, as Waco members and as state of Wisconsin individuals, Mark Hazelbaker has basically put together a template for the other states in this country to use to try to get this law to pass in other states. So we truly are at Waco and in Wisconsin are on the cutting edge of changes in our industry, and we should all be proud of that.
Okay, Kurt, one
Yeah.
question on that. I thought that I read when that first came out, Lori sent out the notice about that being passed, that you were supposed to incorporate that onto your sheet when people checked in, that they had to sign that. Is that true? So they were aware of that?
I think that's going to be a personal decision. I would consult with Mark Hazelbaker on that. I know,
It is in his template.
yeah, you know, waivers are a funny thing. Sometimes they hold up, sometimes they don't, you know, and I think all of us at our parks at some point have a waiver that we sign when we check in or rent a piece of equipment, and it's just, it's one more piece of documentation in my mind that, one, you've tried to inform your customer of the risks that they're taking, and two, they've signed the waiver knowing that they've taken those risks. Now, whether that stands up in a court of law, I think depends on the severity of the injury always. But what this law is intended to do is, if it is a severe injury, help take care of that balance.
You can have, and we all should have waivers for whether you have a beach, when they check in, everybody should sign. It's all about, you know, documentation and covering your butt. This, however, I'll be honest with you, we really don't know how this worked yet, because it hasn't been tried in court of law.
Does anybody want to test it?
Yeah, no. It hasn't been tried, so, you know, when it's tried in a court of law, then we'll know if it's really gonna stand up. So, I mean, it's great that we have it. We hope we never have to use that, but if we have to, that's just another tool in our pocket.
Let me go back to this screen here. The fact that this many states at this point are trying to get that bill passed, and none of them have been successful, I think tells you how important the language is in that bill to protect us from nature, essentially. So is anybody here not from Wisconsin? In the back? It's okay, it's okay.
Campground is in Wisconsin, I'm not from here.
Okay. Well, so to get involved, so if you have, what state are you from, if you don't mind? Minnesota. So you guys are working on this. Not-
I don't think go that far.
okay. Have you guys done some of these steps though? Well,
Let's see.
Minnesota. I encourage you to,
Yeah, we just brought it to them with our chapter.
understand. You'll get there. You look like you want to talk.
So we talk about Jeff Sims, we talk about Arvik, we talk about, what they do for us. Right here, if you've learned anything, this right now is all tabled. This was going to cost each one of our campgrounds, whether you have a 100-site campground or 400 or whatever your number is, was going to cost you $400 per pedestal to get an up to code. So $40,000 for a 100-site park. I'm sorry, but I don't have that laying around. And I'm a little bigger, and let me tell you, that's huge. So Jeff Sims and Wade Elliott. Wade Elliott, if you don't know who Wade Elliott, he is the Watson Wizard. He has a utility supply. He sells electric equipment to all kinds of campgrounds. And
It's Wizard of Watts, but yeah, that's fine.
Wizards or Watts, Watson Wizards.
Continue.
With that being said, Bert, he is also on the National Electric Code panel. And he went on behalf of Arvik and got this so that this 30 and this 50 was going to have to be GFI protected, just like your 20 amp. And so there was going to be a modification in your box so that these tripped just like your 20 and 30s. And we all know how we love 20 and 30 GFIs. GFI stands for something in my world that I cannot say, but I will tell you it will be a nightmare if we had to do this. So Wade Elliott has been fighting this for the last, 2 years?
Yeah, easy.
2-3 years. And right now it's being tabled and things have calmed way down. And right now we are not required to do that. Doesn't matter if you were an existing park or a new park, you had to do this. So that Arvik benefit right there to belong helps. And again, how many people in the room knew about this? 1, 2, 3. And this 4. And this is a small room. So what you don't know is what you don't know. If you knew about this, when Lori sends out emails or an urgent thing that would need to be signed and sent on, the more we have to offset this and send to the national level is huge. So if you get those emails, by all means, read them, sign them, send them on, because that helps our fight on the national level. And Wade Elliott, though it would have been a great moneymaker for him because he sells electrical supplies, he fought against it for us. So I think that's huge.
Agreed. So there's some things like Jim discussed or said here towards the end. You can to stay informed when those emails come through. Please read them, respond, send a your voice counts at that level. We've got people listening to us, so we got to make sure that we continue to have the voices come in because then they'll continue to listen. All right, growth. Well, let's talk about growth. So strong economy is the driving growth, increasing profits, increasing occupancy, new parks, and expansions of existing ones, obviously, increasing installation of new rental units as well. So is everybody here? I think everybody here is probably adding something to their park this year. I find it hard to believe that no one's adding anything, whether it be new bathroom fixtures or rental units or upgrading campsites or playground equipment. You know, those are all signs that the industry is strong, you know, which means that we're doing something right.
I believe there's going to be, 52,000.
We're getting to that.
Okay.
We're getting to that. So these numbers come off of some studies that were done from Arvik. So some polls went out. We collected some data, and we like to think that the data that we collected was truthful. So people saw across the industry 90% increase in profits over the last year, 78% increase in occupancy, and rates have gone up 51%. So take these numbers home with you, analyze them to your numbers to see where you fit within that industry standard. I think that would be a good exercise. Personal opinion. So, parks expanding and being built. So, 44% of those parks that we surveyed are adding sites in the next, or have added sites in the past 5 years. 27 average number of sites in the past 5 years per park that we surveyed. So this is approximately the number of new sites in the past 5 years that have been added to the industry. So I'm sure, yeah, question back here.
Yeah, on the previous slide, just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that the stats were being interpreted correctly.
Sure.
You're stating that 90% of them saw their profits increase.
Correct. Not a 90% growth.
Net increase in profits, just making sure that that was being interpreted.
I may have misspoke.
Across all the arrows.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't get a 90% increase on profits last year.
And no one's bumping their rates by 50% either.
No, no. How many of you have heard from any RV manufacturers or RV dealers that there's fear that there's not enough campsites for all the RVs that are being sold? So at some of these record numbers, we find that at Arvik we find that kind of difficult to believe because there's still occupancy out there. And how many of you noticed an increase in your weekday traffic? Just because the world has changed, there are so many people that work from home. There are so many people that don't have weekends off anymore. They have days off during the week. You know, these are all driving forces in our economy to boost our business. So in the next 12 months, with that study, this is the number of sites that are expected to be added. So at these kind of rates of adding sites in the industry, it's kind of difficult to believe that there's not enough camping space. Yeah?
That last number, the 52,000, that's nationwide, correct?
That's all nationwide data, yeah. Yep, that's not in Wisconsin. So camping on the rise.
Is anybody doing any sort of glamping? Glamping. Okay, so fancy camping. That's all it is you know, and to be honest with you, you can take a cabin, one of your bare bone cabins, and you could call it a glamping cabin, but trick it up. I mean, but again, I'm not a female, but have pretty lights in there and have, you know, decor and all that stuff, you know? Truly, that's what they want. I've seen glamping from anything from a tent out there, just a tent with open sides, a bed in it, and a table, and they call that glamping. I call that a miserable night. But glamping is by and far on the rise. Yes.
Do you only call that a miserable night because it doesn't have the fancy lights, Jim?
So moving on.
So moving on. So this is an interesting take. Generation Z, obviously, I believe is 25 and younger at the moment. Millennials, that's going to be 25 to 35, something like that, I think. Gen X, baby boomers, mature. I think this is just because people die. But But this is an interesting number, millennials on the rise, 48%. So that's a big target. That's a huge number. So Generation X right now, that's pretty popular. You know, some of the baby boomer generation, people are retiring, they're going full-timer, they're buying the bigger RVs. You know, millennials are getting into this camping industry and they're buying the smaller ones. So for a long time, we've seen this uptick in huge RVs and we've all had to manipulate our parks to fix it. And now it looks like we're gonna have these guys come back. So if you got all those old 30 amp sites laying around yet,
And you know what a millennial is?
in the back.
Anybody pick a millennial up? There's a millennial in the room, and he's the only guy on the phone right now. Ben!
Taking notes, thing.
Oh, okay.
And
Just a quick question. So these slides, I realize this isn't your presentation, so you may not have those data numbers, but, so these are all based on glamping. So does that number reflect millennials buying travel trailers, or is that just millennials interested in cabins or tents?
this particular graph shows basically just glamping, obviously. That's what it's labeled as. I know for a fact through other surveys that we've analyzed at Arvik that these numbers are going to be
Pretty standard.
pretty standard, yes. Which is why I made the comment that
So whether they're renting a site or a cabin, they're looking for these.
these numbers are going to be pretty close. Yep,
This is the breakdown of demographics across the glamping, because I see it totals on. the
Correct.
website, so
Yep.
it's saying of glampers, this percentage is this generation.
that's correct. And this is just this is actually just kind of telling you, you know, the different types of amenities in the glamping community. You know, 45%, I'm sorry, this is not colored well, but I think the bulb in our projector's given up.
Get already gave up.
Going back to that last slide, so it says accommodation of sought by travelers interested in the glamping experience.
Yep.
This is what they're, the round one. So this is what they're looking for, or it's what they're renting?
These are, so in these particular types of glamping units, because, you know, it's, in what we look at as glamping is anything that's pretty much fancy. You know, so we can have really nice cabins, we can have really nice teepees, covered wagons, you know, so forth and so on. And if I could tell what I can tell here, this color works. So 45% of those are on-site of an RV. So this big number is on-site RV at the moment.
Do we know if that's a rental of an existing RV or bringing their own?
That's rental. Well, that's a great question.
It just says on-site use of an RV.
Yeah. So this would make sense actually. That's 45% number. This is going to be potential rental units of RVs and anybody that's actually camping. You know, bringing their own to your an overnight guest.
What's the percent of the cabins?
Sure.
You can see the color.
And I'm half colorblind.
Blue 9.
9%?
Yeah, 9.
What's the?
No. I would say that she's got this, again.
And once again, forgive us, this isn't our
This
presentation.
There's two shaded blues. So the 45%, I would
There's two there?
tend to believe that the 45% is cabins and the 9% is on-site use of an RV.
So if that's the
That
case,
makes more sense.
And that would probably be rental RV.
that would be rental,
But they're
yeah.
too close. If anybody else came up here, these two blue shades are very close in color.
So is it correct to interpret that it starts with the 45% as cabins, then
Yes.
go clockwise down the list?
Yes. Counterclockwise.
Can you tell us what they are so that we can label our?
So,
Sure.
so 3% would be teepees. 3% would be covered wagons. 7% would be canvas or safari tents. 9% would be on-site use of an RV. 10% would be tiny homes. 11% would be yurts. And 12% would be tree houses. Now-
When you build those tree houses, Jim.
So, here in the state of Wisconsin, though we're all different, we all have pretty much the same thing out there. Tree houses, I don't know if anybody in the state of Wisconsin, you guys in Michigan have tiny homes in your campgrounds? Or, we use yurts, other than Bud, who's got a covered wagon? Yeah, or canvas or safari tents. Now that would be a glamping unit, you trick that out and have,
Well,
stay in that.
while we're on that subject, not to interrupt you, tiny homes, Arvik does not recognize those as an RV camping unit because there's no regulation on them as far as how they're constructed. So RVIA doesn't get a say in it, those types of things. Just putting that out there.
So that's probably why they separate out cabins and tiny homes, even though you could argue that they're very similar.
Yes, yep.
So would you need a different license because it's not?
No one knows because there's no license.
And nobody's tried it. Again,
It doesn't fall under a manufactured home.
No.
no.
It doesn't fall under uniform dwelling, it doesn't fall under manufactured, it doesn't fall under RVIA. It's a loose cannon, very much so.
Do you allow them to come into your campground? Because I've actually had one come into the campground, and again,
As overnight or?
as an overnight. But let me tell you, that was very odd for. I didn't know how to handle the situation because it's not an RVIA product.
Yeah,
And it's not recognized in our industry. I was very reluctant to have them come in, but then I thought on the same token, it would be a form of discrimination if I did that, so.
the other thing to keep in mind with that is I'm sure everybody has the guy that shows up to camp overnight with the old school bus. That's not an RVIA rig by any means. So just because Arvik doesn't recognize them doesn't mean that I don't think you can't allow them to overnight camp in your park. Now, if you're putting them in as rental units, that's another ball of wax, but I don't necessarily see the harm, personal opinion, not industry opinion.
Did you have a question?
It may be out of the realm of knowledge of what we have for this presentation. But since you have other studies that you've seen and you know the numbers from, and you're saying that the numbers on the bar graph originally of who wants to glam are generally the same trend as just who's out there wanting to camp, would that be a correct assessment?
They could be mirror images of each other, yeah.
More millennials out there wanting to camp.
Correct.
So by power of deduction then, that number, the graph number, this number, would it be correct to deduce that if you're wanting to capitalize on the largest amount of age group out there wanting to camp right now, your money would probably be better spent in a rental unit like a cabin?
It very well could be. It would be whoever wanted to do that to analyze those figures. But if you'd like more information on all this, you can download the full 2019 Trends and Insights Report and others at arvik.org/industry-reports. We have 5 minutes left? Wow.
No, you said 20 minutes left.
Yeah, 10:45 we're here till.
Oh, never mind.
Jim, can I ask one more question
Yes.
on the tiny homes?
Yes.
Since they are not approved, what do you think about them being seasonal then? What's the pros and cons to that?
So, again, from my perspective, in my county, though my county doesn't recognize them to be in an RV or in a campground, because that's what I'm licensed for. I have campground and I have a mobile home license, and they don't fit either one,
Right.
so I don't allow them.
Okay.
What was the power? How did they plug in? Did they just have a regular?
So, yes.
plug?
So 50/30, and they plug in, they have a disconnect.
They had one or the other, not both.
Right.
Right.
Right, so they have their electrical disconnect, they have this, it's basically designed like an RV, sometimes a little more, solid than an RV, but
Did they have onboard tanks, Jim?
some do, some don't,
Yeah,
I mean,
most don't probably, but yeah.
I mean, did I years ago build a tiny home?
Sure.
Called a cabin? Yes, I did. Did I just have them inspected? Just as in 2 years ago, yes, had them inspected and had plates put on so that they are conforming to the.
I know someone that built one, and they're literally just cabins constructed on top of a trailer that are mostly home built.
Right.
Is what they are,
But
and they just sit on a trailer frame.
But again, going back to, would you allow them in your campground or not? I think that's up to every campground owner's decision and what your county or township might say. I just felt, for me, that I wanted to have the ones that I built years and years ago. I wanted to have them conform.
What do you have to do to that? Change them anyway?
Honestly, no, I set up a meeting with the inspector that was here. And it was, believe it or not, a $500 fee. It was a $10 template cost for each one. He met with my builder. We went over the cabin. He analyzed the cabin and signed off on it. So, again, he's looking for certain things, the structure of the building, realistically, yeah, they want before, middle, and end inspections. But with that being said, having him come in, I forgot his name. Do you know his name?
The inspector, I don't know his name.
Yeah, he's here today. And Lori has the information. But to have that satisfaction that they're compliant, he can see by looking under, looking at how it's built, where it was nailed. He can see that it was every 16 inch on center instead of every 2 foot apart. He can see that, if he has to, the disconnect, how the plumbing's hooked up, and things like that. So, Jerry Anderson, great, thank you. Jerry Anderson, he's great, great contact to have.
I think just about everybody in our industry has made huge efforts and strides to change our parks into what they've become. Years ago we used to allow lots of things like building of huge roofs and things like that over sheds or over trailers, and then trailers were there for 45 years, and we've gone away from that. And my personal opinion would be to stick with whatever your licensing will allow you to do, because in the long run you're not going to get into a fist fight with your local authorities over what you have and what you don't have at your park and what it's being used for. Personal opinion. All right, digital. Just some more camper trends information here. So this is just kind of the change in nights plan for the coming year from 2015 to 2018. Obviously we have the years in this category, and then the different types of population in that category. Increasing mobile marketing opportunities. What can you do?
So everybody on their phone, so your website is mobile friendly, is it not? Does everybody have mobile friendly? Yes? Okay. That's huge. In today's world, everybody wants to be able to, when they're at work and they have that 15-minute break or whatnot, or even when they are working, they want to have that ability to go and book online.
Oops. So one of our partners, Go Camping America, free with your Arvik membership. Does everybody take advantage of that?
Yes.
Yep, great.
Yes.
Questions? Sir?
A lot of the information that we have is really helpful and useful on a national level. Do we have anything that breaks them down into the state, like how many campgrounds there are, or how many are part of Waco, or how many are part of Arvik, or what kind of growth plans?
Per state?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
We do have some of that data. There's approximately, I think it's 700, and again,
Yeah, there was just an audit done like 5 years ago.
I think 782 of that 782 right now.
Hold a campground license.
Right. And what could be holding a campground license? Well, anything more than, I believe the number is 4. So a bar,
5, I think it is, but.
so if you have a bar and you have campsites behind and you have 5 or 4 sites there or 6 sites there for whatever, that's a campground license. So I believe right now we have 100 and, what in the association?
160-ish.
168, I believe.
It's right there, yeah.
Yeah, about 168, but I mean, we can, by all means, get that data and we should. I think it would be good to have a state, even though we invite people in from out of state, I think it would be great to have some of that documentation so that.
Something that's important to keep in mind with that large 700 number figure is events like, you know, the music events, like the Country Fests and Rock Fest and things like that. They have to acquire a campground license, a temporary one, to fulfill the camping at those venues. So those are all counted in there. So keep in mind that it's not just 700 campgrounds like you or I in the state. So that's how that gets counted.
But I think that's,
But yes, there is always room for potential growth.
Yeah, and I think that we could actually put out a study of what's going on here in our state.
Make a note of that. Let's take it back to the board.
Does anybody have any questions?
Unrelated to the PowerPoint presentation that Paula was going to give.
Or Waco or things like that. I mean, there's so much that's going on with Arvik and Waco. Just let it be known that whether you're in Minnesota or wherever, that your voice can be heard, and all you have to do is reach out to the right people. So your regional director or any of the board members here in the state, Bert and I are on the board, anytime you have a question or a concern or a problem or an issue, you know, by all means, reach out to somebody because we're there for you. And though I am a large park, I am a voice for what I believe is a small park, because to me, small mom and pop parks matter, and they don't have the money or the backing or anything to fight some of these fights. So I, on the board, want to be that person for them that's going to be an advocate for them to help them along. As far as Arvik goes?
Yeah, always, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I'll be happy to answer them. Or if you just want to pull me aside in the hallway and say, Bert, I got a problem or I got a question. You know, if you don't want to bring it up publicly, I'd be happy to always deal with that.
Those of you that are non-members, you know, if you wanted to sometimes share why you're not a member of Arvik. And
That would be useful information as well.
You know, because, I mean, it could be something that happened, 10, 20 years ago that maybe is resolved or maybe the person's not there. I'll be honest with you, my campground was the charter member of Waco, and my parents chose not to belong to Waco for whatever reason. They just didn't have the money, and I get it. I mean, interest rates, like Paul can attest, back in the 80s were, right, 16%. Well, how the heck do you afford to do anything, let alone spend money on dues for an organization that you don't know what's going on? So I get it, I understand it, but both Waco and Arvik, believe it or not, are here for the best interest of all the campground owners, and we're going to do what needs to be done for our industry. We got a great industry, we have a great lifestyle that we live, and we want it to prosper and flourish. And so with your help, being a member of Waco, being a member of your state association in Minnesota, that helps. Arvik, again, strength is in numbers, so that when we have these fights that we have to fight at the national level or state level, that we actually have the people behind us, like the Tavern League. They're a huge voice.
It makes a huge difference when you walk into Washington and say we have 2,800 members. You know, where typically when you walk into Washington and a support group's in there, it's usually, we've got a couple hundred members. And then they start listening. Well, when you say we've got 2,800 members, there's a lot of people that are voting there. So, I mean, that's what politicians do. Let's not go down that road, but that's what politicians do. They want votes, they want to be supported, and when you have 2,800 voices, they start listening.
We had a meeting last month up in Wausau, and believe it or not, they looked right at our table and they said, before the meeting's done, we want to talk to your group, because they wanted input from Waco. And so we have your back. We're looking out for the best interest for you guys, and the fact that they recognize us as a group of professionals, that speaks volumes.
Does. Yes, sir.
One kind of endorsement, I guess, I'm buying a tractor, John Deere, and when I went in and got my military discount, the salesman was taking a look and he said, well, he asked if I was part of an organization. I said, wait, Arvik, oh yeah, well, he added that discount on top, so I'm saving over $6,000 on the purchase
Oh my
of the
God.
tractor.
Sure. Yep. Right here.
I am relatively new to Waco, just in the last couple of years.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I belong to Waco, but I did not belong to Arvik, basically because we're very small. We have 5 campsites and 8 cabins.
Sure.
But you guys, I will say, you have done a great sales pitch, and you did a good job pitch hitting for
Paula.
Paula.
Yep.
You did a great job.
She's better looking than Bert.
Way better.
Yeah, I'll tell you, she's got 12 motorcycles.
Harleys.
Yeah, all Harleys, and I'll tell you, she's a pretty little thing, and she's got energy like you wouldn't believe.
She's probably going to see this video.
Oh, what's
She is also half Bert's son.
She is.
I guess kind of to touch on what the gentleman over here said, I guess a little bit of advocacy for the Arvik front. If you are part of Arvik and you enjoy the Waco convention and you think the Waco convention is the best that there is, which it is, it's awesome. If you ever get the chance, or if you're ever thinking about going to the national convention, the Arvik convention, I strongly suggest doing that as well, because there's a lot to offer there, a lot of good classes like what you're getting here, and a lot of networking. Just, then you don't necessarily have to come and sit in a class like this to learn what's going on in other places of the world, because you're going to make those connections, you're going to make those friends that you're going to talk to throughout your season and their season, and then just that networking and the information that your fellow campground owners nationwide can give you is pretty much untouchable as far as value goes.
I've been in the campground industry for 37 years, and I was a snot-nosed kid working with my parents, and I can remember.
That explains everything.
And Frank Ward said to me, kid, you just stick it out, you'll do well. And I remember that to this day. And one of the things I can say is the difference in my park was when I joined Waco. And when I joined Waco, I joined Arvik. And when I went to the schooling to learn about campgrounds and business decisions and things like that, that's what made the difference. And trust me, something that humbles me is I still have in my safe my parents' checkbook and their little ledger. Back in the day, it was about this big, right? And you had little pages, and they signed it. And oh my God, what they took in on 4th of July weekend, and we have a pretty large park, what they took in, $7,000. And I can honestly tell you that I have some zeros behind mine. And that's the difference. The difference is I'm working on the business, not in it. So, I encourage everybody to do what you can to educate yourself, like being here today and knowing knowledge is power. And when I was in school, I didn't believe it because I was just that kid that wanted to get out of class. But the fact that you're here learning and taking these things back, that knowledge is huge, because when it comes time to talking with an inspector, somebody at your county office, or your township, that's where it's going to pay the dividends.
We got 5 minutes left, and I want to talk a little bit about education. And Paula, who was supposed to be here today, is in charge of our education programs over at Arvik. And that is her background. She was a middle school teacher for about 15 years before she decided to change careers, which I don't know why she wanted to change careers being a middle school teacher. But she decided to shift gears, and now she's more in tune with writing education and understands that everyone has a different way of learning. We can go around the room if we really wanted to, but we won't. Everyone here has a different way of learning and understands that. So when she's writing these new programs to do these college credited courses online that Arvik's going to start rolling out and have available for you and staff members that you feel you want to have go through this training, it's just remarkable how easy it is to learn with this new education that's coming. So keep that in the back of your mind. We're super excited for that to get into full swing.
So what she's done is she's put it online. So there are a lot of people that want to learn and they don't have the ability to do it 2 weeks in the spring or 2 weeks in the fall. Now they've created a program where you can go online and you can take a class, one class, do it online and get certified for it. So then you're going to do it at your own pace. But you're going to have that certification. It's an online class.
And that's where everyone learns at a different pace comes in. Whether it's just who you are as a person or what's going on in your day, it allows you to become educated at your pace.
I believe that they rolled out NFPA 1194.
NFPA 1194 is out.
It's standards and operations of campgrounds.
Yep.
And that's on, and so, yes.
Is that a free class?
No.
No, they are reasonably priced, obviously. Education's super expensive to write the programs. Obviously, there's the software that's involved. Obviously, Paula's time that's involved, maintaining those courses, adding new courses, that's all.
So
We try to keep them respectively priced. Obviously, we're trying to make it a member benefit as well.
And
Obviously,
you can only take the class if you're a member, correct?
yeah,
Okay.
yep.
So the NFPA, those that don't know, it's standards and operations of campgrounds. Now, two things with doing that. When you take that class, not only is
Courses is a better word,
course.
just because there's more.
So when you take that course, just
It's easy, Jim, it's easy.
so when you take that course, not only is it a leveraging tool for you at your township or at your county, it was where they rolled it out and they said, well, Levitt Insurance is going to offer you 15% discount if you have your certification. Well, I went and had it done. I don't have insurance. And so I thought, well, you know what? Because Levitt offers it, let me see if West Bend's going to offer it. So I called my agent in West Bend and I said, hey, Levitt's doing this. Will you guys do this?
You probably shouldn't use insurance names.
Oh, yeah. Scratch that. Can we dub that tape? And so, long story short, I brought it to them and actually got significant savings because I'm 1194 compliant. But that is a huge pamphlet to take into your township and say, hey, everything that we're proposing to do meets the standards and operations of Campground 1194.
Who here has been through the Arvik actual school? Where was it when you went? Was it still? You went to the one in Denver. Okay, great. I highly recommend doing that. You're going to meet some great people. You're going to learn a lot of stuff, especially if you're new to the industry, period. Even if you're old to the industry, if you've been in it for 30 years, you're going to learn a lot of cool things. The networking that's there is just amazing. It is. This is actually, you take the trip and you're gone for 2 days at the school, 2 or 3 days, however it's set up. And you learn everything from cash flow and how to borrow money to operations and procedures and, campground industry and, just the things that you miss on everyday housekeeping. How long's the price tag still been on the toilet?
The best thing
Those types of things, it just opens your eyes to those types of things.
And I'm sure you can attest that when you take a class online, is much different than when you actually go there. Will you not say that you have made relationships in the country?
Absolutely.
And-
And from Wyoming and all over the country.
And can you not call one of those contacts and ask them a question?
Sure.
Yeah, that's the key to it. It's the relationships that you make with these people throughout the country that are willing to help us all be better campground owners. So,
Well, it is 9:45, our time is up. I'm not trying to kick anybody out, but go ahead, Jim.
one thing I wanna say, you know, and today in with what we're dealing with out there, you know, again, I would ask that everybody, if you can, wash your hands, wash them thoroughly. When we were kids, we were told, hey, wash your hands, wash your hands. Remind you to do that. If there is no water available, kind of use hand sanitizer, please, just so that we can minimize what's going on in the world we live in today. So wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Thank you for attending.